Get started.
First thing, you'll need to download the Trnio iPhone app, which is $4.99 in the App Store. Trnio uses photogrammetry, which involves stitching together many photographs of an object taken from different angles. The photos are taken by a camera, or in this case, a smartphone camera, while the stitching of those photos is done by a special software after the fact. The software identifies pixels that correspond to the same physical point and then brings those pictures together accordingly. Once you have the Trnio app, then you have to decide what you're going to scan. Here are a couple tips about deciding what you can and cannot scan. An important thing to remember is to avoid transparent or reflective surfaces because the photograph won't be able to properly tell the software if it's a surface or a void. So if the object that you want to scan is reflective or transparent, then you can either paint it with flat gray primer, which is ideal, or dust it with baby powder in order to create some contours. It's important to scan in an environment with sufficient space so that you're able to move all the way around the object that you're trying to scan. The lighting is absolutely key as you're working in photogrammetry. So the lighting and the environment needs to be even and have as few pronounced shadows as possible. So if you imagine the light outside on an overcast day, that's perfect. It's diffused and the shadows are very soft. Also, if you have access to a light kit with diffusers, that can work as well. Here, I'll show you my kitchen table, which happens to have ideal lighting right over the top. Another thing to remember as you're deciding where you will do your scanning is that you need to avoid your own shadow. So you don't want to be walking in front of any lights as you're walking around your object. You also need to make sure that nothing in the background is moving as it will disrupt the point cloud data. And you need to keep the entire object in the frame at all times as you're working on the scanning process. So go ahead and pull up the Trnio app, have it on the camera, bottom left, and then put it in object mode, top left. Here you can see that I have my objects in view, and I'm going to start by pressing that round button on the bottom of the screen. I will make my way around the object, pausing slightly when the app says it's taking a photo. It's important as you're walking around the object to watch where these little green balls are. At each point where the green ball is formed, that's where the photograph is being taken. So the more of the sphere that you're able to cover with those points, the more overlapping information you'll be able to capture about the scan, meaning you'll have more accurate scan at the end. I'll fast forward through the rest of the photogrammetry process. You can see that I'm approaching the object at different angles, sometimes from above, from directly on from the side. I'm making sure that the images captured have enough overlapping information and have covered the entire object from as many angles as I have access to as I move around the object. Once I have a sufficient number of photographs, it will ask if I want to create a scan from images. I'll say yes, and then the images begin uploading and will start to be processed. I don't have to do anything while I wait, just allow the software to do its thing and come back in a few hours. Once it's ready, you can observe the object either in AR, augmented reality, or as an object on its own. In this case, I'm panning around the room in AR mode, waiting for the object to pop up once the app has enough information about the surfaces in the room. And here you can see my object. I can scale it, I can rotate it. The AR in Trnio is not necessarily the most robust, but it's fun to play around with. There I'm in object mode. I'm exporting this as a 3D mesh in OBJ. I often choose to email it to myself, and then I have a little bit of an archive in my email. So I'll change the subject, butternut plus mitten plus book, and go ahead and send. Here I am in my email. I'm going to download the file. Open that zip and look at the model. This is just in preview, so it's not a full representation of what this model actually looks like. Here are also the texture maps for reference and in case you need the texture information. And in order to finish processing, I'm going to just pull the model up in Mesh Mixer, which is a free program. It's really wonderful for post-processing 3D scans. So the image information is here on the object. It's actually looking pretty good, but you can see that this is not closed, so you would not be able to 3D print this object. The first thing I'm going to do is go to Edit, Make Solid, and this is using the FAST algorithm of creating a solid, so it's pretty blocky. I'm not pleased with the way that the FAST algorithm works, so I like to do accurate solid type, solid accuracy, and mesh density pushed all the way up, and that will give you the most accurate scan and the most high resolution scan possible given the parameters. Although I'll still need to go in and do a little bit of smoothing and shifting of the surface plane in order to get it exactly how I want. But even after you go through this solid making, you'll be able to 3D print it pretty much immediately. This can take a while, so let's fast forward. So here we have our closed object, which is great. And after I've taken a look at it and decided it's what I want, I'll hit accept. So in order to do a bit of further editing, I like to put a different shader on it just so that I can see the reflections better. And often I am using the smoothing brush. It's really useful for smoothing this kind of stippled surface that Trnio 3D scans often have. So I'll go over the sections of the scan that I would like to smooth, making sure to rotate it and undoing any actions that are not proper at that time. Then I'm going to select the areas that I want to discard. And there's still some peripheral information from the table that I don't need, so I'm going to use the select and discard function. I'll keep doing that until I'm pretty happy with the bottom edge. I have one more. Grab that area, discard, and then go back to edit. And I'm going to make solid again because in the process of discarding some of that information, I made some holes. I use the same settings in order to make this solid. The second time, wait for all that to process. And here we are. Hit accept again. And we have our object that's ready to print. So I'm going to export as an OBJ. Wait for all the vertices and faces and all the rest of the information to process. And here we have the final object, ready to go in the slicer software and be 3D printed. And there you have it.